Hello, I'm Vlad Spara and I know about shooting. Today I'm introducing you to this Norinco NP34, the copy made by the famous Chinese company of the SIG 226. The SIG 226 is a firearm we've seen very recently on the channel. By the way, you can watch the video by clicking here if you're interested in learning a bit more about the history of this iconic Swiss-German firearm. In short, if you don't remember, the SIG 226. It was one of the Wonder Nines, the well-known 9mm pistols with double-stack magazines introduced in the 1970s and 80s. And they competed for many years and in many different contexts on the market. Think, for example, of other famous Wonder Nines like the Beretta 92 in Italy, the 98 or the CZ75, another very successful design from that era. Here's the SIG 226. This was the case for pistols in the German world, and it was a pistol that was first and foremost put into competition. For the American adoption of the Beretta M9, and many claim that it would have been a better pistol than the Beretta M9, and certainly this great popularity it had among some units that didn't want it. Anyway, the M9 made it so that it was perhaps one of the most copied designs in the world at that time, a design that definitely has many valid features. Today I wanted to take a closer look at this pistol from Norinco, because you see, pistols and Chinese firearms in our country have a terrible reputation, in the sense that, it's just more Chinese junk, more Chinese trash. We Italians make better firearms, and certainly the firearms produced in Italy are of high quality. However, I don't think it makes sense to look down on a product that could be absolutely excellent. Copies of this kind often hide interesting technological solutions in order to be more affordable. So I'm also a bit curious because I hope to give this gun a little redemption, since otherwise it really doesn't cost much at all. Let's move the camera, check how it's made, see if it differs from the regular SIG 226, and most importantly, test it. So let's take a closer look at this Norinco NP34. As we know with the NP34 first, we see the Norinco logo in the right light and the NP34 designation 9mm caliber. Obviously, these are made in 9x19 for the international market, but in Italy they arrived in 9x21. We also find the logo of the Chinese company here on the grips, on both sides and on the right side of the gun. It also gives us more evidence that this is a Chinese-made gun, as it clearly states made in China. The second piece of information we get is that it's exported by Norinco, so the name of the company is repeated several times on this gun. The controls are identical to the SIG 226, which it copies. Let's review them again. We clearly have the trigger that works in both double and single action. There are no surprises from this point of view. Then, when the hammer is cocked, we have the option to use a decocker. Then back here, we have a hold open lever that activates when the magazine is empty and the magazine release. Here, as you can see, we have a single stack magazine. Clearly, the last lever we can find when it comes to controls is the disassembly lever. Here on the left side, this latch that we need to rotate to disassemble the weapon. The right side, instead, as you can see, is completely free of any kind of control. As we have also pointed out, the SIG 226 is essentially a weapon that hates left-handed people. Let's disassemble it a little, just to see if there are any differences inside. At this point, we can rotate the aforementioned latch and release the hold open. We have now separated the frame from the slide and the barrel of the weapon, so we can remove the recoil spring and take out the barrel of the weapon. I'm not surprised now seeing this weapon. If literally every single part is the same, I'm not saying made with the same manufacturing tolerances, so not necessarily interchangeable, I wouldn't be surprised if they copied it exactly, one by one. The barrel looks the same. Here we still have the famous SIG system, where even though the barrel tilts like in the Browning system, the locking is done entirely inside the ejection port. This was the great innovation of the Swiss-German company. Here too, the slide is absolutely standard. From this point of view, we can also clearly see the extractor of the firearm and the firing pin safety, which is absolutely essential, especially for making the vertical system work. What I definitely see as different is not so much the recoil spring guide rod, but the spring itself. The spring is this one, with these two wires twisted together. It definitely looks much more rustic. And in general, I don't know if you can see it well with the camera, also because there are certain things that aren't always captured. But how did this weapon end up? Its workmanship? The edges are a bit rough. The bluing in some areas isn't always perfect. It's dull. In many places, you can see that the finish, typical of Norinco, was done much more quickly. Not everything moves perfectly like on the SIG, but as we'll see in the shooting test, this isn't a problem. The experience with the weapon. A very interesting copy. I love copies because often with copies you can better appreciate some of the technical features of the weapon. Because sometimes copies simplify certain things, sometimes they leave them the same, and often look for creative solutions just to be more affordable. Look, there's nothing shameful about trying to make a weapon that costs little, and there's nothing shameful about buying a weapon that costs little. We just need to recognize what we're buying with the money we're spending. A cheap weapon will inevitably have to have some compromises, but they're just compromises. Maybe it's not as nice looking, the steel isn't that shiny. Do I really care about having shiny steel? I don't know if I'm making myself clear. As long as it works, I don't see any problem. Let's reassemble it. Since we mentioned we could try it out, let's put back our recoil spring. Oops! The barrel slipped out of my hand. Let's put everything back on the slide onto the frame of the weapon, pull it back, activate the hold open, turn the latch. Oops, just like in the video. I was pressing the magazine release instead of the hold open. We can go try it out. And here we are at the shooting range of the Legnano Shooting Club, testing this Norinco NP34. I've said it before, but I'll repeat it. I'm really in love with the budget copies of so-called normal firearms, because often these copies have some really interesting technological solutions. But the controls are just like those of a regular SIG 226. We have our magazine, we can insert it, rack the slide, and see what it can do. The first thing that comes to mind, the first criticism I had of the SIG 226 is its reset. A trigger reset I really can't stand. Still, apart from this reset, it's not bad at all. I'll tell you something else. Maybe it's just the situation I'm in right now, but the texture of this grip looks rough, yet it's actually very smooth. I'm pretty hot this morning, as you can see from the sweat dripping down my forehead, because it's a beautiful sunny day and my sweaty hands are starting to struggle to hold this weapon. I don't know if I should risk suffering even more and put on gloves just so it doesn't slip out of my hands. But let's finish these other 10 shots first. It didn't go into hold open, no big deal. Okay, we're out of rounds. What can I say? It's a bit rough to handle. I mean, it's not just, in my opinion, what could be a bias. Having a weapon made a specific way by a certain company instead of one made in China makes economic sense. You can feel that it's a little rougher. When the slide of the SIG 226 moves, it's beautiful. This one also moves, but not as nicely. However, right now I don't see any flaws. Many people discriminate against this weapon, the so-called poor Norinco, Chinese weapons and cheap guns. But as long as it works, it's working. Let's keep shooting. Shooting fast, it inevitably tears. Every weapon requires practice, but the reset of this trigger confuses me, and, I repeat, it's something I also found on the SIG 226. Okay, now it went a bit low, a bit center. In my opinion, the big flaw of this design, not of Norinco itself, I'll say it again, is that when you go to look for the reset, you can't find it. It's one of those strange things that's hard to explain to someone who maybe doesn't go to the shooting range that often. But for the rest, it's not bad at all, not bad at all. I accidentally pressed it while holding my hand on the magazine release. Let's keep going. Laughs. And in fact, it hadn't loaded the face. Laughs, 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 laughs. Laughs. Apart from this little blunder, no, actually, unless you really want perfect finishes, like you find on the SIG 226, this is a weapon that works perfectly. If I could change something about it, again, apart from the trigger, the grips are slippery, my hands slip, but it's hot, I'm sweaty. Still, I need to be able to grip it properly. Still talking about the gun, but apart from that, it has little recoil. Despite the high barrel, the shots go straight, and the sights are clearly visible. It's not bad, so thank you all for watching this video. As always, remember that you make these videos possible, like the owner of this gun who wrote to me and offered to let me try it. Without the contribution of generous people like you, these videos of mine would be impossible. If you want to contribute directly to the channel, simply, here you can pay for the punishments that I use. You can subscribe to access exclusive content or buy the amazing channel t-shirts. That way you can brag to your friends at the shooting range that you support me. If you can't, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing to the channel. It helps a lot, especially because YouTube doesn't like firearms at all, and we need to convince it to promote my videos instead. For me, as a creator, this is essential. That's all from me for today. As always, I'll see you next time.